And so when we say go giver, we simply mean that person who understands that shifting their focus, and this really is the key, right? It's shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, let's define giving. When we say giving, we simply mean, in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way, a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well.
Are you frustrated watching your hard-earned money ride the knee-jerking Wall Street roller coaster? Are you looking to diversify into alternate investments and set them on autopilot to achieve financial freedom? It's time to learn the ways of the wealthy. It's time to think outside the stocks with your host, Madhavi Jain, an immigrant from India and ex-IT professional who will bring you industry experts to illustrate a passive and holistic financial approach to build not just passive income, but also your generational wealth. Madhavi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time and 1,000 more to go. Are you going to be part of this vision? And now, without further ado, here is the host of Think Outside the Stocks, Madhavi Jain.
Think about your most favorite book. Now close your eyes and imagine the author of this book walks in on you when you're strolling through a bookstore. And not just that, he sits down with you, has a coffee and a conversation. How would you feel? Mind blown, right? That's exactly how I feel today. The author of my most favorite book, actually the favorite book, the book that I live and breathe by, The Go-Giver, the co-author of this book, Bob Burg, is here today with us at Think Outside the Stocks as our first guest. I am so delighted to have Bob here today. The Go-Giver has changed the strategy, the mentality, the values behind many entrepreneurs like me, and it has become a Bible of values for us. I hope this brings some change in your life today. So listen in and try to understand the 5 laws behind the stratospheric success that Bob indicates. The Go-Giver has been the bestseller in Wall Street and BusinessWeek. It has sold over 1 million copies and translated to 30 different languages. Other books with Go-Giver, Bob has sold over 2 million copies. And Bob actually is a Hall of Fame speaker. He's been recognized as a Hall of Fame speaker. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's most motivational books ever written. American Management Association has named Bob the top 30 most influential leaders, and Worldwide Rishtopia has named him the top 200 most influential authors. Bob is an advocate and a supporter of free enterprise system. And fun fact, he has shared stage with many influential leaders, including the former US president. So join me to extend a really warm welcome to the co-author of the book that drives me, The Go-Giver, none other than Bob Burg. Bob, welcome to our show. We are so excited and grateful to have you as our first guest on Think Outside the Stocks. Welcome. I'm so humbled that you have accepted my invitation. Welcome to our podcast, Bob.
Thank you so much for having me and for those very kind words. I'm honored beyond words. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. And, before we actually get in and start talking about the Go-Giver philosophy, and I do want to talk about this philosophy in terms of our listeners today. Entrepreneurs like me, we have this book as our values Bible almost, and we have known about this book very, very well. But our audience today may not have heard about this book, and I would love to address that. These are the passive investors, busy professionals who have that purpose and passion in their mind, but they haven't acted upon it. So how we can bring in that value to them and they start applying these principles in their life so they can lead to that, the 5 laws of stratospheric success that you imply on, which has helped me flip the script. And I hope that helps them to flip the script as well.
Well, thank you.
So let me ask you a question. Let's try to get familiar with the human behind the Go Giver. So, Bob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your initial days, your struggles, and how it came about to be the author of the top-selling book today?
Thank you. Well, I began in broadcasting, first in radio and then television. I wasn't particularly good at it, and it wasn't long before I was not, in that field. And what I like to say, graduated into sales. And but the challenge there was I had no formal sales experience, and so I struggled, and I really floundered for the first few months. And then I was in a bookstore, and I came across a couple of books on selling, which is no big deal these days. But this is 40 years ago, and back then, who knew about those kinds? I didn't even know there were books on sales. I was just looking for something to help me in some way. And I came across two books. One was by Tom Hopkins, and one was by Zig Ziglar, two of the icons in the sales and personal development field. And I took them home and began studying and learning and applying. And within a few weeks, my sales really began to take off. And this was encouraging to me because it said, well, if you have a methodology for doing something, a system, then you can do practically anything within reason. What is a system? Well, I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that
Right.
all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. So that happened for me. And it was very encouraging. I became a student of sales, and really more than that, a student of personal development. This was the first time in my life that I saw that success was an inside job, that you built yourself first on the inside through reading
Right.
books, through listening to, back then it was tapes, that's how long ago it was, through going
Yeah.
to seminars, right? And you built that on the inside. Success manifested itself outwardly, but it began inwardly. And so really sales, which was a matter of really adding value to the lives of our customers, is really what it comes down to. And personal development became something I loved. And years later, I began to speak on it and teach on it and write books on it and all those fun things. And here we are today. So it's been a
Thank you
rewarding
so
career.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that journey. And Bob, so many things that you have gone through, so many things I resonate with it. First of all, the books, right? And I can see that you are a avid reader. There's so many books behind you. I can see that. But it's so important, right? When I started Think Outside the Stocks, I left my corporate career, and I started in real estate, actually, in investing. And as I come across these various strategies, I was mind blown, and at the same time I was restless that the community around me still doesn't know about it, still have no way of participating in it. And that's why that's the purpose behind Think Outside the Stocks I started.
Yeah.
When I started, and I was passionate about educating them, and I came across multiple educational models that I created for them, and I started sharing, and things were going really great. But what happened with me is when I had my first investment, and I hit that mental roadblock, the roadblock that you're talking about, right? That it is not the outside, it's the inside. And my roadblock was that I just felt like I am being too much of like selling, which did not resonate with me at all. See, I come from a place of purpose and passion, just like you, Bob. And this selling and pursuing, it felt like I'm literally selling my soul out there. And when I started looking for books just like you and starting to look for help, I came across Power of Persuasion and Closing the Deal, and I just couldn't resonate with me. And exactly at that point, the Go Giver came to my life like an
Wow.
angel. And that's when it started talking about the laws of stratospheric success. And the first two laws are the most, the laws that have resonated with me, the value and the compensation, right? So your success is directly proportional to what value do you bring to people and what amount of people you serve.
amazing.
That's exactly what literally resonated with me. So can you talk about these first two laws and how can our listeners today can take away from it?
Yeah, and let's go back even a little bit into some of the things you were saying, which were wonderful. And when you said you just felt like the way you were being taught to sell was not, it didn't resonate with you, right? It was not
Yep.
congruent with your personal values, and you kind of felt like it was selling that you didn't enjoy. But I'm going to suggest it wasn't that you didn't enjoy selling; it's that you didn't enjoy what you were being taught that selling is, or what you
Absolutely
thought
true.
selling is, because
Yeah.
selling is in sales is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the world, right? And
Right.
and so many people think that selling or sales is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. Well, that's
True.
not selling. That's called being a con artist. And, so somebody who really has high values is not going to resonate with that at all, right? And if they think
Right.
that's selling, of course they wouldn't like selling. So let's redefine selling into its true definition, which is simply discovering what the other person needs, wants, or desires and
Right.
helping them to get it. And what's interesting is John David Mann, my awesome co-author. I want to make sure to mention him because he was the writer who made it happen.
Absolutely.
He was, and so in our follow-up book, Go Give or Sell More, what we do is we break down the old English root of the word sell, which was salan, which meant to give. So when you're selling, literally you're giving. Now, someone might say, well, wait a second, Berg. Okay, that's all clever, but isn't
Right.
that just semantics? When you're selling, what are you really giving? Well, I suggest that when you're in front of someone who's a prospective customer or client or buyer, you're selling. So what are you giving? You're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately immense value. So if we see selling as being that, now we can feel great about selling.
Yep, absolutely. I love that definition, Bob. You literally, you changed my perspective all over again. Going back to the root of the sale, the concept of a
Sure.
sale. And now when I just say to myself that, okay, selling is giving, that's exactly what's resonating with me. And
Sure.
in fact, my goal with Think Outside the Stocks, I have defined a goal, Bob. And these two principles, these two laws are the reason behind this goal. My goal is to change financial trajectory of one family at a time and thousands more to go.
That's
And thousands
wonderful.
more to go. I want to touch these lives. And when I say this drives me, this book really, really drives me.
Wow.
So go ahead. You are continuing about
No,
these two
that's
laws.
wonderful. So yeah, so if we talk about those first two laws, the laws of value and compensation, let's look at first at what we even mean by the term go giver, right? And so
Right.
when we say go giver, we simply mean that person who understands that shifting their focus, and this really is the key, right? It's shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, let's define giving. When we say giving, we simply mean, in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding
Absolutely.
that doing so is not only a more pleasant way, a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of woo-woo, way out there, magical, mystical reasons. Not at all. It's very rational. It's very logical. You think about it. When you're that person who can move your focus off of yourself and place it on on serving others. Again,
Right.
discovering what they need, want, and desire. When you can take your focus off yourself and place it on solving their problems, when you can take your focus off you and instead make it all about helping this other person achieve happiness, right? Well, people
Right.
feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in a relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you. They want to become your personal walking ambassadors. So it's a great way to do business.
That's a great concept, Bob. And then what it has helped me is disassociate myself from the results part of it, right? When I'm
Perfect.
focusing on my audience, my clients,
Right.
and every day I do that. Every day when I go in a meeting or I'm meeting somebody, I think about that. Let me put this person on the driver's seat. Let me see what his problem is and let me start solving that problem instead of going gaga about, hey, I learned these strategies and this will be helpful to you. And that kind of leads to our, the third law that you have, the law of influence, to put them in the driver's seat. And that is so
Exactly.
important.
Sure. So if we still look at the first law, the law of value, which is all about the awesome buying experience you're providing another person, right? So by
Right.
the time they do business with you, they feel as though they've received much more in that overall value than what they paid, while you also made a very healthy profit. In fact, here's the great thing about this. In any
Right.
free market-based system, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one's forced to do business with anyone else. They both do so
Absolutely.
on their own volition. There should always be at least two profits: the customer profits and the entrepreneur profits, right? The
Right.
buyer profits and the seller profits, both. Why? Because both of them came away better off afterwards than they were beforehand, right? And
That is so true.
yeah, but it's all up to the salesperson, the entrepreneur, to make sure that they're the one who's placed their focus in the right place. Because remember, nobody's going to buy from you because you want the sale. Nobody's going to
Right.
buy from you because you have a quota to meet, or nobody's going to buy from you just because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning. So the value must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is a natural result of the immense value you've provided another person. Now, the second law, law of compensation, as you talked about earlier, is so important because it says, yeah, the values part's great. You've got to do that. But it's also how
Right.
many people's lives you impact with
Absolutely.
that value. And that's why doing it through relationships is so important, and having people who want to tell others about you and developing. Right now, we go to that third law, the law of influence, that you were talking about. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, not in a way that you're a doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial. That's not what we're talking about. It's simply
Right.
understanding, as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of sales, of business, says that all things being equal, right, people will
Right.
do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus. Looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win.
So many knowledge bombs there, Bob. My God, my mind is blown. And when you're
You're so
talking
kind.
about these things, right? The experience of this particular, it's not a transaction based. It's not
Right.
a transaction. When you're connecting with people, so it's not only that you are serving them, you're adding massive amount of value to them. You're adding massive amount of value to massive amount of people.
Yes.
But you are also
Oh,
building that connection
that's what
for
it's
life.
all
So
about.
it's not
Yes,
just a transaction anymore.
exactly.
It's your lifelong connection, and that's how I feel about my investors. And we
I
think
know you
outside the
do.
stocks. This
Yeah.
yeah, and we think outside the stocks. This podcast is what I'm trying to do is that the law number 2, to reach massive amount of people and be able to serve massive amount of
Yeah.
busy professionals out there to get rid of their W2 job and move towards the financial freedom, right?
And
Now
and you're the embodiment of that third law about placing their interests first, because every conversation we've had, every email exchange has always been about how you can better serve your listeners and your students and the people who, so you absolutely embody that law.
I am so honored that you say that, Bob. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next law, right? And which is I think it was most little bit difficult for me, the law of authenticity, because here you're trying to be the authentic yourself. And here on the other side, there's, in the world, you want to be the, saying the right things, doing the, doing
Sure.
the right things,
Mhm.
and also not, hinder anybody's emotions. You have that inherent need of being liked, right? So it's a conflicting that you're trying to be authentic and you're trying to play, want to be liked. So how do we balance that? How do you say, we balance that?
Sure. So in the story, the mentor in this part was Deborah Davenport, who was a very successful realtor and real estate
Yeah.
investor. And what she said is, the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Now, the biggest thing that she learned, that she shared, was all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are very important, they're
Right.
all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do,
Absolutely.
right, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. And consistency is an absolutely immensely important aspect of building trust, right? People need to be, if
Right.
they want to make sense of their world, in a world that often doesn't make sense, right? So when you're
Right.
that person who shows up all the time, now, so we talk about having to be liked, and then there's the other extreme where people sometimes, I think, um, misdefine authenticity as meaning, well, I can just say and do whatever I want because, well,
Yep.
otherwise I'm not being authentic, right? Or authenticity means there's no boundaries. I can just say or do. And, that's sort of like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to
Mm-hmm.
act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. Well, that's totally wrong. That's malarkey, right? That's hogwash. It simply means that person has an authentic problem, right? That they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So I think it really comes down to this. I define authenticity very simply. It's
Mm-hmm.
acting congruently with your values. Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, should we want to be liked? Of course. Why wouldn't we? We're human beings. Now, if being liked means, well, we're giving wrong information and someone's going to, well, no, that's not being congruent with our values. If our highest values are to help the other person, right? So
Right.
we want to give the right advice. We may have to do it tactfully and
Yeah.
diplomatically. That's fine. That's
Mm-hmm.
also congruent
Mm-hmm.
with our values of treating people with respect and honoring
Right.
them. So, so I think really when we can take what we're about to say or what we're about to do, I remember the definition attributed to Gandhi when he said that integrity is when everything you think and everything you feel and everything you say and everything you do are in alignment.
Right.
I think that's authenticity, right? So when we
Yeah.
take what we're about to say, right, the advice we're about to give, the connection we're about to make, or whatever we do, if we can then measure that against, is this congruent with my value system? And we do that, we're being authentic.
That is so important, Bob. And that's exactly how I feel about being authentic, right? Being authentic, it means being vulnerable to me. And what you're pointing out that, the other extremes, that you don't have to be that other extreme, that's also equally important. And especially when I am coming in from the place of struggles myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to be authentic and just put myself out there when I'm talking to my investors, for example, if they are struggling with something, if I have struggled with them, I'm open to share that with you.
Sure.
If I have failed into something, I don't want them to do the same mistake. So I want
Exactly.
to share that. So authenticity from the place of values that
Mm-hmm.
that you indicate, I think that's really important. And that's when you are actually going to start enjoying what you do, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not going to start feeling dry after some time. Because what happens with people, I mean, especially those who are in corporate worlds and they have the burnout because there is no connection, there is no value system integrated in day-to-day
Unfortunately, that
life that
often
they're doing,
happens. Yeah.
right? And that's when they feel dry after a few years and there is no, there's no purpose, there's no passion. So I want our listeners today to think about what your purpose and your passion is and how you can be authentic about it, how you can bring these values to you, right? The next law, Bob, I must honestly say that that was the hardest for me
For a lot of people.
to to digest because now we are talking about go giver, and that's really the giving, completely resonating with me. But now we are talking about receiving. The law of receiving. It's a go giver. It's not a go receiver. And I wanted to be open to receiving, and had a hard time. I would love for you to help us, digest and implement the fifth law.
Well, the law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Here's how to look at this very, very simply. And Pindar, the main mentor in the story, taught this to Joe. And that is, it's like breathing out and breathing in. We've got to do both. It's not one or the other, right?
Yeah.
We breathe, if we want to survive, if we want to thrive, we breathe out and we breathe in. We breathe out, which is giving value.
Right.
We breathe in, which is receiving value. Giving and receiving are not opposite sides of the coin. They're two sides of the same coin. Now, here's why there's such a big issue with this and such a big problem with so many when it comes to receiving. The world around us continually throws these anti-prosperity messages at us. If you and a lot of times it's from as early as upbringing, right? Upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, movies, where you've got the good people who are typically poor but they're happy, and you've got the evil rich people who are always nasty and horrible. These are the messages. Read social media. Look at all the people who downgrade anybody who has a lot of money as though they got it on, hard. Now, there's people in the world who do really lousy things and make a lot of money. But you know what?
Yeah.
That's not most people.
Right.
And especially when you're in a situation where people don't have to do business with you, the only way you can get very wealthy is how? By providing immense value to people who choose to buy from you.
Right.
Help a lot of people, right? Place their interests first because they're not buying for your reasons, but for their reasons. Come at it from your authentic core and then be able to receive. Now, here's the thing. Giving and receiving, two sides of the same coin, but the giving has to come first. This is universal law. These are laws of nature, human nature, but also physical nature, right? We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. We give before we receive. But here's the thing. When we focus on providing immense value to others, when we touch the lives of lots of people, when we place their interests first and make it about them, when we come at it congruently, we have created what John and I call the benevolent context for your success. When you do this, you will receive in abundance. You'll receive an abundance. You've just got to allow yourself to do that, and that's where receptivity comes in.
You said so many great things, Bob, there, and I'm gonna, go back to where you were giving that breathing analogy. It's literally this, the two sides of the same coin. It's so important, that breathing. If you are breathing out, you have to some point breathe in. Otherwise, you're gonna just gasp for air, right? And in the sense of my business, I look at it and I think about if I keep on constantly giving and there is nothing coming back, I'm not ready to receive it. My giving is going to stop at some point.
Oh, sure.
Right? My giving is going to, because I'm not going to be able to survive.
And shut down the flow, it's going to dry up.
Yeah. And if I were to impact, not thousands, say millions of families, I would have to stop at some point because I will do a disservice by not being able to do that. So I want to be continuing doing that. And, that the giving and receiving, that you have an analogy for breathing in pranayama, which is a breathing exercise that we do at back home in India. We actually breathe out first. We breathe out first, and then we start breathing in. So that's when you say
love
that,
that. Yeah.
yes, that's you plant the seed first, you give first, and that's when you kind of become automatically open to receiving, and you receive naturally. So our listeners today, if you are thinking of that purpose and passion in your life, and you have been just waiting right around the corner for that opportunity to be waiting there, think about that you are actually doing disservice to those people who are supposed to get impacted by you, who are supposed to get inspired by you to bring in some change in their life. So if you are delaying that, just stop there. Go get your copy of Go Giver and start reading about these 5 laws, which Bob just explains here. It's tremendous. It has flipped a switch for me, and it will do that for you as well. So Bob, with that, such a great conversation. I hope I would just continue talking to about Go Giver and the 5 laws. But I also want to bring in another concept here with Think Outside the Stocks, right?
Okay.
With Think Outside the Stocks, one of the aspect of our community that makes me really restless, that when it comes to the finances, when it comes to the investments, historically, we have stayed as a very secretive society. We don't share things that have worked well. We don't share our failures, our successes with even person next door, within our family, within our community. And that makes me restless. When I found this strategy for the first time, I actually wanted to go tell the world and everybody who was working hard that please use this, because these are such simple passive investment opportunities that in your busy life you can bring in. It's so easy to do it. So I want to bring that, imagine the world where we shared our successes, where we shared our failures with people around us, with community. We all could be together so much more better, more successful, right? So the hardest thing to do is to give that out, to share that, and think outside the stocks. With this segment, I do want to ask you, as such a successful person, how do you, Bob, think outside the stocks? And even I wanted to ask you, and I had in mind, why would Bob answer this question? And going back to one of the quote that you had, that typically the more successful they are, more willing they are to share their stories and their secrets with others, right? So this is what you say in the book. And
Right.
by the way,
And are told
such a great book. I think the business parable makes it stick to your mind and always stay there. Other books which just talks about laws and this and that, it doesn't stick, because the business parable, the story behind it, it just helps it stick. So thank you so much for writing this book from all the Go Giver community. And with that, I would love to ask you, Bob, how do you think outside the stocks?
So, if in any way I think outside the stocks, it's only because I have bucked the trend of all the fancy investments. Instead, put together with my financial advisor a very, very boring portfolio. But one that has done very well because I just stick with it. We put it together in such a way that we have it so it's the appropriate amount of risk and the appropriate amount of security and the appropriate amount of this and that. And he's a guy who I know, like, and trust, and I know he
Right.
watches over it carefully. So I've got to be the most boring investor that you've ever met, but also a happy investor.
No, boring is good actually. I actually encourage my investor to be the boring
Exactly.
investors, and somebody who like, and trust, and have done something in this field. You can just go and try to see and try to kind of imitate what they are doing. I love that, Bob, actually, because that's what we want to have our listeners do. They have a purpose and passion in their life. Your purpose and passion is completely different. You're not worried about the money, how it's growing, and you kind of want to put that on autopilot. And we think outside the stocks. That's what we want to help others to put their wealth growth on autopilot, so they can focus on purpose and their purpose and passion. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, I do want to ask, we are almost coming to the end of our interview here, sadly and unfortunately, but I would love to ask that how would they, connect with you, how they could inhale more of the go-giver, from you. Can you share that with us?
Well, that's very kind. My website, where pretty much everything is Burg, my last name, BURG.com. That's how old I am, by the way, because I was able to get Burg.com, right?
Or unique, right?
So they can go to Burg.com, and pretty much everything's there, including they can read a free chapter of the book or any of the books in the series to see if they
Right.
like it. And while they're there, they can also subscribe to my daily insight email. I send this out 5 days a week. It's a kind of a brief email that makes a certain point, whether it's about sales or communication or what have you, that is meant to educate and kind of inspire throughout the day. So it's called Daily Impact.
Thank you for sharing, Bob. I'm sure that our audience will like to subscribe to that and get that daily small dose of positivity and productivity from you. Now we are to the end of our last round, which is kind of a fun round. I call it a rapid fire round.
All right.
Where just quick answers, just a 60-second answers to a few of the questions, and I'm going to ask this. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I'll make believe I'm on a quiz show where I have to come up with the answers without thinking too long.
I'm going to say these are going to be easy answers, hopefully. So let's start. Let's get started. First thing that you do every morning.
Say a prayer of gratitude to God for giving my soul back to me for another day.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. The one day that was the most difficult in your life, and you still remember that hardship.
Okay, that one it's very hard to come up with. There are just there are times that you just really sad and grieve, and those are the days that are the toughest.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What's the most heartwarming thing your reader has said to you ever? A few.
I think it's people who've expressed that they had faith in me and my abilities, and expected good things from me. I think
Right.
those are the things I really took to heart from leaders.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You are such a humble person. It's just,
thank you.
it means, it exactly means what you said. One advice that you received that changed your life.
I think it was from a gentleman years and years and years ago, after I soon got into sales, who said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. But when you hit the target, you'll get a reward. And
Right.
that reward will come in the form of money. But always remember, he said, never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It isn't the target itself. Your target is serving others.
Excellent. And by the way, if somebody asked me that question, my answer would be the first two laws of Go Giver, that you add immense value to immense amount of people. So
Thank
that
you.
has changed my life. One book that you recommend to our readers today, which is hard.
How to Win Friends and Influence People is always a good one. It's the ultimate in people skills and being able to navigate, understanding human nature is really so important when it comes to success.
Thank you so much. And one last question: what advice would you give to our the busy professionals who are kind of stuck in their corporate life or their jobs, and they have that purpose and passion that they haven't acted upon?
Well, action's so important that, and it's not that you should make any rash moves or do something without thinking just because it's something you'd like to do. But I'd say it's really, really coming to grips with what you want to be doing, with what you're passionate about, and what you're good at, and taking the action to make sure that you're very competent at what you want to do. But then also making sure that before you go into it, that you feel good that there's a market for it, right? Because
Yeah.
some people say, well, follow your passion and the money will come, right? Well, not totally, okay? Follow your passion, great, but you've also got to find them. You've got to know that there's people who will buy your passion,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You could be really
Absolutely.
passionate, but if you don't have any customers, well, all you have is an expensive hobby. So you've
Right.
got to make sure there's also a market. So be smart about it. Learn from those who have already done it, right?
Yeah.
Find
Yeah.
the system. Remember that process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. Find the system, apply the information, and stay persistent, because you know that there's going to be a lot of no's along the way. As my
Right.
friends Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton, co-authors of the great book Go for No, as they say, yes is the destination, no
Right.
is how you get there.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Bob. And again, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to have you
Oh,
on my show.
my
You
pleasure.
are my first guest on my Think Outside the Stocks podcast. So, this marks a great beginning and great honor for me. Thank you so much. I
The
really
honor is
appreciate
absolutely
you.
mine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So today you heard Bob, the co-author of The Go-Giver, the book that drives me, and I hope you are inspired and understand these 5 laws of stratospheric success. Because I know that in your mind somewhere in the corner, there is a purpose and a passion that drives you, and you want to escape this rat race and jump into your passion project. So it could be, creating a yoga studio. It could be hiking to the Annapurna base camp, or it could be the path of philanthropy. It could be the path of spirituality. You have that purpose and passion in your mind. Go Giver is going to give you those 5 simple steps, 5 simple laws that you can start applying to your life today. And don't let that passion wait for you right around the corner anymore. With Think Outside the Stocks, start creating that multiple flows of passive income so you can go back and focus on your purpose and passion. That's really, really important. You can put the growth of your money on autopilot so you can focus on that passion. And if you are not yet focusing on it, ask yourself just one question. If you are supposed to touch that one life, if you are supposed to motivate that one person, and if you're not following your passion, you are depriving them from getting that impact in their life. If you are depriving them, you are doing a disservice them by pushing it out any further. So start thinking about it, start think outside the stocks, and start managing your growth creation on an autopilot in a very risk managed way. And if you like today's episode, we have a very exciting news for you. We are giving away 10 signed copies by Bob Burg of the book The Go-Giver. So if you are looking for getting your hands on one of those copies, please go like, subscribe, and put a review for us so we can put you in a draw to win one of these 10 copies. There are just 10 copies available. So I would suggest you do it now. Just go ahead and like and put reviews on as many episodes as you want. And we will put your name in the draw to win one of these special books signed by Bob Burg. So don't delay that. And thank you again for listening. And from Think Outside the Stocks, I will see you on the other side in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Think Outside the Stocks podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. Madhavi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time with 1,000 more to go. We hope you'll be a part of this vision. Please join our growing community, and to get your journey started, visit thinkoutsidethestocks.com to download your free guide on active income with passive real estate investments. If you learned something new, please share it with one person today. And if you have 60 seconds, please leave us an Apple review to help us reach more people like you. Tune in for the next episode.